that they do here is antithetical to community engagement and community development. We live in a very diverse place. I don't know where you live, I don't know any of the circumstances of your stuff, okay? But here in Seattle, we are a pretty diverse group of people, especially here in Capitol Hill, which is our neighborhood, and so it has a lot of gentrification issues as they tend to have as people move in. So there's a lot of change going on in our society, in our space here. So this police station is the 3rd precinct, and because Seattle has such a horrifying reputation internationally even for our police forces, eventually got so bad that we had to be controlled by the Department of Justice. We don't even have local control over our police department because it's so bad. Now, is that a good thing? It seems bad to me. I don't know. Apparently the Seattle police thought it was swell because they haven't really changed in the entire time. So one of the demands that we've had, like, let's say for the sake of our discussion right now, 5 of them. One of them was that the Seattle Police Department, SPD, has to agree to remain under the control of the Department of Justice, which they have agreed to do. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing, again, because it feels like if you need federal oversight for your police department, that maybe your police department should be disbanded and rebuilt as something else. But that's just my unprofessional opinion. Y'all could have different views on that kind of thing, and there's certainly room for discussion about active community policing programs which don't have law enforcement officers which are part of police unions and have things like qualified immunity. If you live in another country, you might not even know what the hell qualified immunity is. You may never have heard of it. And when I explain it to you, you might be surprised that it's a real thing. But qualified immunity is a law we have in the United States which only applies to police officers, and essentially what that law does is allow a police officer to break the law and not be held accountable for that same violation that you or I or any other citizen would be held accountable for. And the reason they get to do it is because their police unions negotiate contracts with the cities that then employ the police, where the police union gets, as part of their labor contract, those rules built in, that the police get these exemptions, they don't have to do this kind of activity, they're going to be immune to this kind of prosecution, they can have these benefits and so on and such. Now, friends, the problem with that is that if you are a society that ostensibly is based in the rule of law, that you use law to apply equally across your citizenry and to have a fair and equitable society, the moment you exempt the enforcers of this law from the laws, you no longer have a nation built on law. You have something else altogether. The fact that it also exists in a class structure where rich people don't have to be accountable in the same way as poor people demonstrates that we really live in a very different kind of place than you may have initially suspected. There's some technical terms for all this kind of stuff, like oligarchies is a government which is controlled by the wealthy for the benefit of the wealthy. We definitely have that here. But we have something else here in the United States. We have a kleptocracy. They steal from the workers. They steal from you. They steal from me. They steal your surplus labor value. That's how they make money. For the sake of discussion, let's say you work 10 hours and they pay you $500 a day, and somehow they have a whole bunch of workers and they're paying all of you $500 a day, and you think to yourself, how on earth can this company be making money when they're paying all of us $500 a day? Well, it's because they make a lot fucking more money than $500 a day, and it's just your excess labor. Now, in any other situation, if you were making, let's say, crops and you were growing corn or whatever, and you grew 1,000 corn, and someone just came and said, you know what, that's great and all, but we're going to take like 800 of your corn, you'd probably be pretty upset about that, even though 200 corn is a lot of corn for one person to have. The fact of the matter is, that's how it works. That's how they make their money. And so why do you think these businesses are saying, come back to work and open up again? It's not because of you. It's not because of your minimum wage salary, which in Seattle at least is $15 an hour. But it's not because of that. It's because they pay you $15 an hour because they're making $50 on your labor, 50. Would you like to get that 50? I bet you fucking would. I would. Why would you not? Maybe you would even give some to the people who buy the building and give you the supplies to make the stuff. But you sure as heck would maybe not split it less than 50-50. You might say something like, okay, it's your building, it's your materials, but it's my skill and my labor, so we'll split this. That's not the deal you get. You get nothing like that at all. And so you're screwed, I'm screwed, everybody in this system is screwed unless you're the benefit havers of the system, which we aren't. The people who benefit from this aren't here in the street. They're watching. They're hoping to fuck that we don't go anywhere else and we just stay here in the streets too, aren't they? But this is the nature of what community protest and involvement looks like. Look at this. There's no crime spree going on in our autonomous zone. There's nothing like that happening here.
What's up, brother?
The fact of the matter is you're going to see this shit all across the world. And people who are right-wing conservatives or libertarian sorts are going to tell you shit like, hey, look, Seattle got rid of their police. As you can see right there, got rid of our police. Look, it's the people's precinct right now. And they're going to tell you because of that we're going to have crime waves and all that right here, right in this very spot. But you see it. You hear it around you. There's nothing going on. It's a quiet, peaceful night. I mean, perhaps a little bit more like a Friday night here in this part of the city because there's a bunch of people out and doing stuff. But there's nothing untowards taking place. And this is us doing the thing we've been asking to do for 12 days.
This is like the only place in Seattle.
Do you mind to be on stream?
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
This is like the only place in Seattle where I've consistently seen, and even before the autonomous zone was like, you know, what we have it as secure now, just when like same type individuals with the same type goal were in the same area, I saw where homeless people were for the first time treated with equal respect and at least compassion to circumstances, especially when it seemed like they might have some kind of like mental illness as well. Versus the rest of Seattle, usually, you know, people act like it's like second-class citizen type shit. And here, yeah, exactly. And I thought that alone has been pretty indicative to me of like what this really, the movement and the people are about, and how like, you know, media can totally sway some people who aren't even here, you know, and meaning like businesses around this area are so convinced, some of them, that like, you know, they need to board up and there's gonna be riots. And you see that around, like, you can have one business be completely boarded up and then the one next to it be completely, you know, nothing on it. And then that's, to me, another sign of like just the mentality of that there's like, it's divisive to people. And as much as people want to act like they're not, like that alone is, you're not really understanding the movement, you're not understanding the pain that people are trying to put out there. And like, yeah,
you're not wrong. I think one of the things too I've seen a lot of is so it's like spontaneous community coming together, but it's more than that, because it's us on the streets, it's people in their apartments and back home, like donating to people for their charity efforts, bringing food out. Like people's moms, I want to give donations, what do? Someone help me. And someone shows up at their house and grabs their shit and brings it here. And that is what's going on, like all around us. And I think for me, one of the bigger things I'm seeing too is when you look around, like the barriers. All right, so what do people do when they have cars here? We'll remove the barriers for them. They just wait for a second and someone moves the barriers. Like, it's not. Again,
well, right, and like even though there's nothing like necessarily what the productive thing going on here is that this is a ad hoc think tank.
It very much is.
It is, and people are figuring out, okay, we've been stuck inside for 3 months with COVID, like, you know, while authoritarian world wants to keep boxing us in by taking away more freedoms as we sit here. This was the catalyst for everyone to come out of the.
Well, I think it was, and that's also why I think it's going to be very different than other protests. Generally speaking, irrespective of what the reason is, on Mondays people go back to work. And so you can't come out every day. You just can't come out. But there's the Great Depression, the Greater Depression, the Greatest Depression.
Yeah.
Awful way to say that, but 40 million Americans out of work, and there's no reason to think that number is stopping there. That number is going to go higher. Yeah. So if there's no reason to there's no jobs to go to, there's no other reason than to be out in the street and finally demand the change that we want to see. I talk about this shit all the time. Sitting at home going, wow, I sure wish there was a and then no one's going to make that for us. It's not going to magic itself into existence.
I think everyone's coming out of the waiting for and into this is a blank canvas.
Right. Who's our leaders? We are our leaders.
Right.
We are the ones who will step up and build the things we want to see. And like, I have friends who are disabled folks and stuff, and they feel bad that they can't be out here. And I try to talk about that a lot because I think, the spirit of a person, right, rarely reflects their body. So you might have a warrior spirit and want to be out in the street, but you can't. And that can make you feel bad and like you're not really participating. But I think that's all like a wrong kind of view. I'm an ex-military person myself.
Okay.
And so I understand that for one person to be standing on the street, you need 13 other people in the back helping them stand in the street. That's a huge team. That actually puts all the most important people in that one person being on the street are not that one person on the street. It's everyone else supporting them. And that's a big, big deal, right? Like the food and the coffee and stuff. We want to be out here all night. We want to be out here every day. The only way to do that is with food and supplies that people are bringing in and donating, and over again. And it's, I don't know, it's just great. It's just great.
It's a great first step, and then it also makes you think, okay, well, let's continue to build on that. You know, and that's where
how does this go from here?
Right, and some of us have been thinking about like taking into Cal Anderson Park and like creating different guilds, discussion areas. Okay, what do we want to do with education? What do we want to do with policing? Like you said, I loved what you were sharing. I loved what you.
Thank you.
And by the way, I wanted to get your consent to film. I saw you filming, so I figured it was okay.
Yeah, no worries. I appreciate it.
Rad, brother. Okay, cool. Because you have such a beautiful way of articulating this.
Thank you.
Yeah, truly. But like what you said about how now it's evolving more into like community well-being and redesigning that from the ground up.
Yeah.
Rather than
absolutely.
a militant police, this is going to become the people's. The people have to decide, use their ingenuity now because we have the chance.
Exactly.
Rather than complaining all the time, which we've done.
What do we want? What does it look like?
Right.
Yeah, that's why I think it's actually like to those people who feel bad about not being here physically, like the only times really where you like physically, I think it was important when we needed to have like physical force, like to show the police that we were being resilient and that people weren't afraid of just their total control, more or less, that they felt they could project. And then also it's important in, I think, the fact that the huge number of people that have been just concentrated despite the pandemic, despite financial issues, etc., is something that, like you were saying, it just is a testament to the strength of this, and it gives more motivation. But I think I wish a lot more people would be really working smart instead of just putting in hours. And I've been thinking of that and seeing. I've been here for a really long time, since Saturday, the first Saturday, and I mean I'm fortunate enough to live downtown, but so in that you see a lot of the same people throughout, and you're kind of looking at what they're doing, and they're there are a lot of people that are doing a lot of good stuff, but at the same time I'm kind of wondering, all right, if you're putting in all that time here, what are you able to put in outside? And I'm thinking, we need to be tackling, really just talking to our representatives or talking to our circles about which representatives we want to see leading us in going forward into actual politics, because eventually this is gonna, everything's gonna be gone from here in terms of the limbo-ness of it, and we're gonna have to go back to our political system in some sort of way. Exactly.
I feel you, and it's who are the leaders and what is the new deal? Are we going to come up with and somehow create new systems for all the voices to be heard, not some 30% voter turnout?
Did you guys get to hear the speakers in the park today?
I did, yeah.
I like that, how there was kind of some continuity throughout the whole talk, so I thought it was pretty nice.
I thought so too. I like Sama Sawant quite a bit. I think she's a really passionate speaker. One of the things I like about her a lot is, look, we've all heard it, right? Politicians have a way of speaking, a way of saying shit that's three things at once, but nothing really solid. Yes. And it lets them kind of really weirdly skirt around stuff. She's really direct. And she, like, when she was out here talking about the defunding the police, she's like, look, I'm not going to bullshit you and tell you, oh yeah, we're going to do it just like that. Because it doesn't happen just like that. It takes votes and it takes some stuff to get it done, right? And she wanted to be serious about that. And I think that's a legitimate thing. I'm tired of having people pander to me to pretend like I'm stupid, like I don't know what the fuck they're saying when they're telling me some bullshit. Like, no, it's like Jenny Durkin out here the other, like, telling us we're not going to use CS gas, we're not going to use tear gas anymore, and then of course using a technically different chemical formula to then say, well, we didn't use tear gas. It's like, you motherfucker.
No, the spirit of what we're saying.
It's a slang word now. It just means chemical irritant. We all know it. That's
don't do like that's just
clouds
wrong.
of it, right?
It's like, how is it not obvious when something is wrong? It's like,
well, it's because that very thing they do, right? And they're playing on that slippery semantic game, and I hate it.
Where are they getting their arm twisted to be so brutal with people? Who's doing that?
Well,
where's that coming from?
We live in Seattle. I want to say, like, it's weird to be in a place like this because we actually have like a multi-billionaire bad guy who lives in our city and controls it with his iron grip. Like, our city council passed a unanimous resolution to tax companies over 200 employees, right? And then 2 days later, pulled back because Amazon threatened them. And if they would have held their ground, Amazon doesn't leave. They do the same thing they did, which is not take the building anyway. But their headquarters stay here. They're not pulling that up and going away. And even if they did, it's like, on one level, wow, that's so bad because we would lose all that revenue, except we would not because we don't tax them. We don't lose any revenue if they're not here. What we lose is 400,000 people using our infrastructure, using our roads and taking our services without contributing to that. Amazon doesn't pay for that. If you have roads, right, these got to be maintained. When I moved to Seattle 8 years ago, there was something like 600,000 people here. By the year 2022, I guess maybe COVID has changed this now, but by 2022, Amazon projections had our city at 1.2 million people. They were bringing in the exact same amount of people that Seattle already had when I moved here. That's a whole other city, and they're not going to pay for it. That means we pay for it. That means our streets get shitty. That means our services go down. All of that kind of stuff happens. And I think, personally, we can't permit that anymore. And I mean, we can't permit it. We can't allow it.
Plus, it inflates the cost of everything.
I mean,
yeah.
Most people I know can't afford a one-bedroom apartment in Seattle. Even if they are
the
software
people,
engineers.
the nuts and bolts of the people that work in the cafes, the people that do the art, the people that make this place rad.
They don't even live here now.
They can't even live here anymore. And then the city, it's not even in the best interest of people working at Amazon. Like, they're like, don't unrad my city by pushing out the people that make it colorful.
Well, another thing you see too, I think, with Amazon at least, is you see a lot of people who are like 2-year employees, right? They're on a 2-year contract. They're not trying to be part of the city. They're not trying to be part of our community at all. They're here for 2 years and then they're gone. They can give a shit.
Right. So they don't bring the care here.
Yeah, they don't bring anything. They don't care about it.
Right.
They're just like here for the
That
money.
might be a generalization, but on the whole, like on on a large portion of them.
I lived in a building downtown that served mostly tech employees.